today, I usually start off with a little bit of history or some trivia, but before I forget, Mark, in case I forget, Mark from Toledo, your boss, Trish Cullop, could you please give her a message? Could you ask her that Colleen wants to know, had she been in any bowling alleys lately? She'll know exactly what I'm talking about. Okay, Mark?
Yes, ma'am, I can do that.
Yeah. Is she going to jump on the call?
I don't know. I think she may. We've
Okay.
had a, it's funny that we're talking about recruiting today. We've had a few exits this week.
Oh,
Being as young as we are, old women in the new millenniums don't like to work for spots anymore. So we
exactly.
start
They
three
wanted
freshmen
handpicked.
through sophomores. So
Exactly. Okay. Anyway, I didn't mean to. Yeah, I just wanted to tell you that in case you sign off or I forget. Okay, so I usually start off with some of my snacks. So today's snacks. Okay, first I want to show you this. This, am I on your screens, everyone? Matthew?
Yep.
Okay. This is Trader Joe's soft black licorice twist. Now, a lot of you may not like black licorice, but I just decided to try it. They are big old things, let me tell you. It's like a piece of rope. I started eating this and my first bag, and before I knew it, the whole damn bag jumped in my mouth. So they're very yummy if you like black licorice. And I'm glad that we don't have any close-ups because I may be eating a piece and I don't want to be on it with black licorice on my teeth, okay? Okay, the second snack I want to share with you is that last month was Black History Month. This month is Women's History Month. So I want to sort of touch and stay in those themes. So I want to talk today that the Girl Scouts were founded in 2014 in Savannah, Georgia. So my other snacks, Girl Scout cookies, thin mints, chocolate covered mints. Again, if I eat one, the rest jump in my mouth. Delicious. This is one of my favorite flavors, as well as lemon ups. They have a tart little fruity lemony taste. And these are really delicious. It's a tie. I don't know which one I could eat more of or like better, okay? Girl Scout cookies. Now, the part of the women's history I'd like to talk about is that, this past Sunday, it was a historic game in the SEC women's tournament when two Black head coaches met for the first time in the championship final. And that was South Carolina, coached by Dawn Staley, our USA Olympic coach. And her squad played against the University of Georgia, coached by Joni Taylor. And this year, Joni was the SEC Coach of the Year. South Carolina prevailed and won the automatic berth 67-62, but it was quite impressive to watch both teams. I thought Georgia was very athletic. They're going to probably cause a lot of problems in the big dance. But South Carolina had won the conference tournament 6 times out of the last 7 years. So they got back on the championship track. Now, it was the first women's conference tourney final between Black coaches in any of the Power 5 conferences, meaning ACC, Pac-12, Big 10, Big 12, and of course the SEC. The other Black head coaches who previously won conference tournament titles were Carolyn Peck with Purdue in 1998 and 99, and Cynthia Cooper with USC at the Pac-12s in 2004. So those have been some historic markers for the game of women's basketball. I want to also mention that there are also 2 other who I call mentors and pioneers of our game. One is Marion Washington from the University of Kansas, who at the time she won, it was called the Big 8 Conference, but they won the Big 8 Conference 8 times before the Big 8 merged with the Southwest Conference to create the Big 12. And that was in 96, 97 year. And a little side note, Miriam was the college coach of Lynette Woodard, who was one of the very first 4-time Kodak All-Americans. And I actually coached against Lynette Woodard. I was at the University of Nebraska at the time. And just to look at Woody out there, it was like, oh my gosh, how we got to play a boxing one, put the box around Lynette, but she was just awesome. And as most of you know, she went on to play for the Globetrotters and is just a super person. So shout out to Lynette. My other mention I'd like to make is Coach Vivian Stringer, who is currently at Rutgers, and she won the 2007 Big East when that conference at that time was considered one of the major conferences. And both Coach Stringer and Coach Washington are in the Women's Basketball Hall of Fame. Coach Stringer is also in the Naismith Hall of Fame. So they're very much people that paved the trail for all of us. And then I want to just circle back here. I usually give musical tips. So today, one of my, I have all women artists today because it's the Women's History Month. The first one is more contemporary. This is Alicia Keys. This is her new album, or new CD, I should say. I collect CDs in case some of you don't know. I have tons of CDs. Anyway, two of my favorite tracks on this are the one called Jill Scott. She actually collaborates with a song with Jill Scott. And as you know, Jill Scott is also another great artist. My second artist is Mary J. Blige. This CD is Share My World. And one of the songs on here is Love Is All We Need. Now here's I usually do only two, but anyway, this one here is a group called Zhane, spelled Z-H-A-N-E. They were an R&B hip hop duo in 1994. And their Billboard hit was Hey Mr. DJ. So this is Zhane, a little picture of them. And lastly, this is an all-female group that sings a lot of a cappella. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. They were founded by a woman from Zaire, and I don't want to butcher her name, but her name is Maria Dullum. Anyway, they sing world music that has an Afro pop music, upbeat type of music. And I tried to play it for all of you, but I'm not going to be able to do that today. So these are my musical tips of the day. And lastly, because I couldn't play her, of course, the iconic Gladys Knight, Midnight Train to Georgia. So that's my music tips for today. And one last shout out. I know I keep saying this. I want to give a shout out to Coach Tamara Inoue at the UC Irvine. She was named co-coach of the year for that conference, and Tamara's a friend of mine and also belongs to the Asian Coaches Association. So shout out to Tamara. Matt?
Awesome. Thank you, Colleen. That's awesome about Tamara. I'll send her a text. She did such a fabulous job this year.
Yeah.
Well deserved. Well deserved. Well, you guys, thank you again, Colleen, for coming on and always starting us off and giving us such good history of the game and really connecting us with the past. Really appreciate it. I'm so excited today to have just three absolute all-stars in the coaching world, the women's basketball coaching world. You can start with any of them. You just kind of flip a coin. They're all three are awesome. I kind of just agreed to start with Mark. Mark is at the University of Toledo. He's an assistant coach with Trisha Cullop. This guy's coached 14 years in AAU. I mean, you talk about knowing the AAU circuit in the Midwest for sure. He's coached 41 Division I athletes in his AAU days. He was a massively successful high school girls basketball coach in Indianapolis. Then they plucked him up to Xavier, where he spent 3 seasons, had great success and a lot of success developing players. Before the 1920 season, Trisha Cullop coaxed Mark to come over to her staff at Toledo. In the last 2 seasons, Mark has developed outstanding talent. And I don't know if anybody's had the pleasure of watching them this year, but there are some good players on that team, good young players, and they got better as the season went along. So the guy can develop players as well. He's an expert, like I said, at Midwest girls basketball. I mean, if there's anybody from Minnesota to Nebraska to Tennessee to Ohio, I mean, this guy knows. I'm not to discount anywhere else in the country, but I mean, this guy is the expert in that region. He's a family man. He's got 3 children. Maddox, McKinley, and then welcomed Mikkel to the world during the season, October 31st, I believe. And so we were able to be with him kind of around that and send him some congratulations. But I'd like to welcome Mark Stevens. Mark, thank you so much for coming on. I appreciate you sharing with us today.
Well, first, I definitely appreciate you guys having me. I think the biggest thing is I love what the message is, the growth mindset. You know, I've been around basketball for a long time, but, you know, slowly, you know, worked my way up the ladder. You know, I was a 6th grade basketball coach, a 7th grade basketball coach, an 8th grade basketball coach, a JV basketball coach, varsity assistant for years. And then, you know, got a chance to become a high school head coach. And then, you know, joined the Gym Rats basketball club as one of the directors there with James Banks and Danny Riego. And it kind of just took off there. I think the biggest thing about recruiting is you are what you can get. You know, you are what your players are. You know, recruiting is the lifeline of every program. And I think that's something that everybody knows. So it's not, you know, sometimes it's not the X's and O's, but the Jimmies and Joes. You know, a lot of people, you know, say that, and some people believe it, some people don't. It's easy to drive a Cadillac. You know, it's easy and I'm not saying it's easy as, you know, the BCS schools, because they have their troubles and trials and tribulations as well. But, you know, I told one of my kids this 2 days ago, it's my job to recruit the best kids in the country. It's your job not to lose your job. And I think that's what, if sometimes kids this day and age, you know, they don't really buy into that. They want to play with good kids. They want to have good teams. But when it comes time to start talking about playing time and some other things like that, you know, sometimes it gets wishy-washy. I guess sometimes you can figure out their alter egos or their bottom line. Are they for the team or for themselves? But, you know, that's never here or there. But just 2 things I want to kind of talk about. I've only actually been the recruiting coordinator for a year now. So again, my whole expertise about the actual recruiting coordinator job itself might not be as in depth as some of you guys are. Like I said, I'm here to learn as well. But just 2 things that I want to talk about is the first one is just know what your head coach wants. And I think that's kind of what I've based my last, you know, year and a half on of being on the job, and especially in the club circuit and in the high school circuit, that, you know, when you're an assistant, it's no longer about what you want. You know, it's about what your head coach wants. And then if you're a head coach and then you become an assistant again, now, again, it's no longer about what you want. It's about what the head coach wants. Because if you're running a dribble drive motion offense, but you're in love with skilled kids who can set, you know, that can knock down threes and come off staggers, and you want to throw the ball in the post all the time, that's not necessarily what your coach wants to coach. But just on the opposite end, if you want to be a Princeton style offense where you're setting flex screens and you're getting deep into shot clocks and you're doing some other things like that, then all of a sudden you're now the long athletic kids that you like might not be necessarily what your coach wants to look for. So I think that's just the biggest thing is find out what your coach likes, and then find out what fits your system, you know. And I think so many times is that it's you want to recruit to your coach's system. So you don't want to have to recreate the wheel every year, I guess, so to speak. So you want to go from, so in my situation, I came to Toledo and my head coach has had awesome success. She's been there 13 years. She averages 21 wins a year. So my cupboard is different. Like, it's different if you go to a staff and you're brand new and everybody comes in at the same time and you're having to kind of weed out the weeds that are there, or you want to blow up the roster and start fresh. You know, everybody's situation are going to be different. But, you know, in my situation, I just had to come in, learn what my head coach wants, and know what my head coach can handle. And what I mean by that is that, you know, I had to come in and realize what Trisha's values were. And I literally asked her, I said, what's your core values? What do you want out of a player? What do you want your program to stand for? And she said, first of all, you know, she wants kids with high character kids. She wants high academic kids. She want, you know, our kind of our mantra is Toledo tough. You know, she wants tough kids, you know, so, you know, it's different. Like, we're right there at that mid-major range where, you know, we can compete with some BCS schools, but we've got to be tougher than them, you know, because our roster top to bottom won't be as good as some of the schools, because she's not afraid to play anybody. I mean, she's played North Carolina, she's played Arizona, Purdue. She's had Notre Dame on the schedule every year for 7 years. I mean, so sometimes to compete with those kids, we've just got to be tougher, because from kid 1 through 10 or 1 through 15 or whatever you might have on your roster, your skill might not necessarily be there. So what I did was I came in and I investigated our current roster. So I had to figure out what's in our locker room right now. And that goes from the mentality of kids, that goes to their basketball skill set, that goes into, can I bring a kid who might not necessarily be smooth, no rough edges, you know, a kid that might need some extra attention, a kid that might need to be brought along, you know, so you can't have too many stern personalities in your locker room because it's not going to mix. But if you got a locker room that can handle I'm not going to say a troubled kid, I'm not going to say a rough kid, but if you know if your locker room can handle a kid that might need a little extra attention, then maybe you can take one of those kids to your head coach's office. You've got to be comfortable enough to take a kid, take a suggestion of a kid into your head coach's office and say, hey, this kid might need a little bit of work. This kid might need a little bit more attention. We might have to, you know, check in on twice a week instead of, you know, on academic meetings instead of once a week. So I think that's just the biggest thing. And I always try to make jokes. The easiest way to make ice cream is half and half, sugar, vanilla abstract, 3 ingredients, you know? So same thing, you know, you can't have a kid who is troubled in the classroom, a kid who is not necessarily great on the floor, a kid who has a trouble, you know, so you start mixing in all these other things that a kid has to deal with. Now you're getting into some situations. Now, you know, every kid has a baggage, and it's not necessarily whether it's good, bad, or indifferent, but every kid, if no kid had baggage, then our jobs would be really, really easy. But then you also got to realize that you've got to evaluate your locker room. You got to evaluate your roster as far as what they do. So now if you've got a point guard, a speedy point guard, or if you got a cerebral point guard who likes to play off the bounce, who likes to play in ball screens, or if you got just slashers and you need shooters, or you've got just strictly post players and you want to get more athletic. So then that's when you start, you know, you've evaluated now your roster based on their mentality, their personality, whether they're good leaders, bad leaders, followers. So now you figured all that out. Now you've got to figure out their basketball playing style, you know, and I think the biggest thing is making sure you're not bringing in the same type of kids, you know, so if you've got, like I said, if you've got athletic kids, now you want to start mixing some of that skill development in. If you got big post players, now you want to start mixing in those long athletic fours. So here at Toledo, we like kids that can shoot. So right now, you know, our 1 through 5 has got to be able, and I'm not saying you've got to be a knockdown shooter. You've got to be a threat. You can't have, your scouting report can't say you're a duck. So that means, you know, nobody's playing off of you. You're the doubler. You're the kid that they're playing the rover on. So different things like that. So that's when I go out to find a kid, I know I've got to find a kid that can do this, this, and this. And it's not necessarily what I want. It's because that's what Trisha wants. So even just like our PG1s, our PG1s have got to be able to slide to the right, which means if they can be a PG1, they've got to be able to run an offense. They've got to be able to score the basketball, but then they can be a scorer as well. Okay. Not necessarily moving to, you know, jacking up all the shots, but you've got to be able to give the ball up on a ball screen, get it back out, have your hands up in the corner, ball gets reversed back to you, you can knock down shots. Then you've got to be able to be a ball stopper as well. So sometimes it's really tough in the game of basketball, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but to have to find a PG1, somebody to guard. Because most of the time your PG1s are on the shorter end of the spectrum. They're normally, you know, unless you lucked out and you've got you a 5'10", 5'11", 6-foot point guard, but most of them are between that 5'5", 5'8" range. But if your PG1 has to guard a 2 or 3, or you've now got to hide them, I think that sometimes kind of messes up your defensive, you know, your defensive matchups and different things like that. And it's the same thing for a combo guard. If you're a combo guard, I think you got to be able to slide to PG. You got to be able to play PG2. So if you're a combo guard and you can't, and all you can do is knock down shots, if you're not hitting that night, you've got to have a seat. And I think that's the biggest thing. So if you can be a combo guard and you can be able to slide and play PG2, or just the opposite, slide over and play some small forward, and again, can't be a defensive liability. And then the same thing about our wings, you've got to be able to slash, you've got to be able to attack the rim, you got to be able to defend at a high level. And a lot of, in our league, in the MAC, our conference's best players are the 1s and 4s. But everybody plays with big 4s, which are basically just guards. If you look in our conference, everybody's 4s are 5'10", 5'11", long and athletic. Everybody's 5s, a couple teams play with a true 5. A couple people play with, again, just big wings that are, you know, long and athletic. So those are just kind of the things that I just, you know, you just got to know your locker room. You got to know what your head coach wants, whether it's personality wise, whether it's skill set wise, whatever that is. You know, that's when you go out and you've got to start recruiting towards that. And I think that's just the biggest thing. And then the other thing, which is kind of what I enjoy doing, is just the branding part about it. Like I again, not doing this that long, I think you've got to be able to know what your market is. You've got to be able to know what your message is, and you've got to be able to get it out in an organized, precise manner throughout the school year. And I think the biggest thing for us is, if you're going to be strong in the Midwest, be strong in the Midwest. You've got to be, and what's crazy is, because I know it happens to you guys all the time, especially head coaches or assistants. You'll talk to a club coach, 2 days later, he'll email your head coach. And he's like, dude, I just talked to you. So now all of a sudden it's like, man, then your head coach brings to you, be like, yeah, I talked to such and such, last week. Or vice versa. Your head coach is on Twitter. Your head coach is on, head coach is on the internet. She say, hey, Mark, what do you know about such and such? You got to be able to at least know, the AAU club program. You got to be able to at least know the high school. I think wherever your area is, recruiting starts in your backyard. So whether you're a Midwest school, whether you're a California school, whether you're a Texas school, I think recruiting starts in your backyard. Obviously, the bigger brand you are, the bigger market you are, even sometimes the name across your jersey, you can expand that. But again, for us being in Toledo, it's kind of tough to go out and recruit a kid from Georgia because we're 10 minutes from Michigan, but again, on the flip end, we can go and recruit Buffalo because we play Buffalo, New York. We can go out and we can recruit Nebraska. We can go out and recruit somebody because we do play in some of those states, just whether it's taking a kid back home. And I think it all just depends on what your scheduling is, what your market is. And then sometimes you got to get rid of stereotypes. I think also a part of about recruiting and branding is knowing your university. A lot of people label us as a blue collar city, and that's fine because our mantra is Toledo tough. So you want to tie whatever your recruiting is to your university. And I'm not saying necessarily that all of your stereotypes are going to be good. Sometimes they're going to, they're going to talk about it because you're in a downtown area or you're in the suburbs or you don't have this resource or you do have this resource. Whatever that is, good, bad, or indifferent, you've got to be able to spin it in a positive way that's going to help your university attract people and attract talent. And I think that's, the biggest thing that I learned, especially being in the Big East, is that you can recruit from Ohio to Indiana to New York, St. John's, the Seton Halls, and even the Georgetowns of the world, because you do go to those areas, so a kid they know that they're going to come home for at least one game. It depends on what, if you play in an in-season tournament every year in Florida, if you play in an in-season tournament every other year at Texas, now you can kind of get into some of those markets as well. So again, I think the biggest thing is knowing your demographics, knowing where you are personally good at. And I think that's what Coach Cullip has done a really good job with our staff, is that we have another young lady who's an assistant. And again, this is for either a head coach or somebody who's aspiring to be a head coach, is that, your staff can't be all from the same area. And I think that's where it's tough. Or you've got to have staff members that can branch out and make connections in other places, because if you're a Midwest school and everybody, unless you're gun-ho about recruiting in the Midwest, then yeah. But what's great is if we get, Danielle Page is from Nebraska, Coach Ivy is from Florida, Coach Cullip just knows everybody. So I think that's what's allowed us to be able to get out and recruit some different kids. If you look at our roster, we've got 9 different kids 9 of our kids are from different states. So that, I think that's, again, knowing where your brand, knowing what you're able to do recruiting. Again, obviously I know budget and all that stuff builds into it as well. But those, just small things about, owning your backyard, knowing your university, knowing your pros and your cons. And then just small things. I like to get into the graphics and all that type of stuff. When I was a club coach, is weird because a lot of schools really thought that they were going to get kids because they sent out the coolest graphic. I'm gonna be the first one to tell you, like I said, we had Dana Evans, we had Jackie Young, we had Lindsay Crosaro, Stephanie Mavunga, Tara Reimer. We had all these kids. Half of these things end up in the box, and I'm talking about in the trash can. Okay, or half of these things don't even make it to the kids. Mom or dad gets it and it stays in their car because they check the mail before they go to school. Before they go to work, and the kid don't get it till 3 days when they get in the car because they just went to the gas station. It's like, oh, you got my mail. Okay. So again, it's nice, and it's definitely something that you have to do. But I think recruiting is such a personal touch. And I think the more you sell your program, sell who you are, you definitely got to do some of those things But again, slogans, I think it's got to be something that's unique and it kind of carries you throughout the year. Something that we normally do is we kind of make it kind of like a tagline or a jingle if you're kind of making a commercial. So for this year, it was "This is Toledo" or "This is." So everything that we did all year at the top was "This is." So this is academics. This is winning tradition. This is Danielle Page. This is Trisha Cullop. So everything that we sent out, that was kind of our tag. So everything was kind of centered around that. And then that even goes to some of our social media. That goes to what we do on text graphics, our business cards, our mail outs, all of that stuff. And Matt, I don't know if you can.
You should be good to share, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I'm gonna minimize this real quick. So just showing you guys, can you guys see this?
Not yet.
Oh, I gotta hit the share button, Matt, sorry. Share screen. What about now?
Yep, now we're going.
All right. So again, this is kind of our "This is" home court advantage. And again, just showing the kids, just when we talk about our home court advantage. This is our home court development. Can I see the next one? Yeah, see the development one?
Mhm. Mhm.
And then again, so just going off, this is our squad going off, just talking about our kids, just throughout the season. Another thing that I would say too is to make a calendar. The great thing about having a calendar is that you don't have to come up with ideas and different things like that throughout the year. You've kind of already got them set. So now when the games are going and different things like that, now you're just plugging and playing and adding different things like that. So again, when we talk about our assistant coaches, this is Danielle Page. We talk about Danielle Page. I think it stopped. Is it still sharing?
It's sharing. It's back on the home court advantage screen.
Oh, okay. I think. Sorry. I got to hit a new share every time, I guess. Sorry. How about this one? What are we on now?
So we see a few different windows.
Okay. So yeah, these are just, like I said, just talking about the on-court development, talking about the squad going off. And then, some other things that we get into. Can you see this one, the good luck at state?
That's cool. Yeah.
So again, so these are what we call personal touches. So these are what we would send out in text graphics. So again, you get into like the still graphics, and now you're getting into stuff that's a little more intimate, that's a little more player specific. We do the happy birthdays. We do different things like that. Again, just showing kids that it's just all about birthdays. I mean, not all about games. It's now that you're if for some reason a kid happens to get hurt, wish you best luck in recovery. Just small things like that. And then again, great games. So again, if you get that calendar, when a kid plays, if you get the local newspaper, you can say, good luck, different things like that. So again, the calendars just help, especially if you're in the midst of a losing season, because everybody knows it's really, really easy to recruit when you win. But when you're going through those losing seasons, now you can kind of reach out to some of those hallmark holidays and, kind of add some of those small personal touches on social medias. And then these are just our game day tweets. And then what I do with those is I have like each coach will send like our top, we call them our gold and blue categories, our top 2 categories. One coach will send it this week. The next coach will send it that week. Coach Cullop will send it this week. I'll send it this week. So that way the same kids aren't getting the same things from me. And then these are our post-game wrap-ups. So after the game, we'll send a kid again, just small post-game wrap-ups. Whether sometimes it's good, bad, or indifferent. You don't always want to send kids something when you lose. When you win, then it kind of just, we actually we kind of push our youth. Like I was saying earlier, when we start 2 freshmen and 3 sophomores, so we want our kids to know, like, there's going to be really good talent here when you get here. And I've actually sent out things that talks about our losses and the reason why we lost. And I think sometimes when you're honest with kids, I think it goes a long way, especially with parents. And I think, the nice thing about, I'll go back to this. The nice thing that's about recruiting is that you gotta open up and be vulnerable with yourselves. And you just gotta speak directly with people and just tell them that what you're about, whether you're a family man, I'm a man of God. You know, everybody's family situation is different. Everybody's mom or dad is looking for something in particular for their kid to be around. So whether it's you, your assistant, or somebody else, every coach isn't gonna reach all 15 girls. One coach is going to be really partial. I mean, is going to be really close with this 6. One coach is going to be really close with this 9. One coach might only be really close with this 4. You know, you hope that each kid on your roster has somebody close to them. And I think that all starts in recruiting. So I know a lot of this is, you guys probably already know, but this is kind of what I just learned. My 2 biggest things that I've learned in my short time doing this is this: knowing your head coach, and then the whole branding aspect. So Matt, I definitely appreciate you.
No, that's great, Mark. That's awesome. We'll open it up for some questions for Mark. I know I have one, but I'll open it up and see if anyone else has anything they want to ask. Go ahead and unmute yourself and ask if you'd like. I'll go ahead though while we wait. But Mark, I've always had kind of a question about, you know, when you change schools. If you're just joining, just go ahead and mute yourself. Mark, when you change schools, like you went from Xavier to Toledo, how long until you felt like you know what Trisha wants, you know the university, you know the surrounding, like you know what your brand is, and you feel like you're in 5th year and you can recruit? Like, how long is that like process? Because I know if you arrive somewhere on day 1, it's got to feel pretty hard to on day 2 be recruiting someone to that place that you just arrived. So can you just talk a little bit about changing schools and recruiting to the new school?
Well, I can tell you right now, and it's still going. Because like I said, this year with being COVID, we kind of didn't learn much. I think the greatest thing about going to a new school is, like you said, learning new people, learning new universities, learning new communities. I think you've got to know your community just as well as you know your basketball program. Because I mean, even small things like when I was at Xavier, you take the wrong turn and now you're in a really rough part of the area. So you want to show off how great your school is. But when you're going around a tour, you kind of don't want to show certain parts of the area until they get there, or they sign their NLIs, or they're stuck, I guess, basically to laugh about it. But then again, you got to know, like, small things, like even, you got to learn where to put kids up in the hotel. You've got to know which hotel has the best view, or which hotel overlooks the river, or which hotel has the easiest route to get to where you're going to go play bowling. Cause you don't want to drive 20 minutes, you don't want to spend 20 minutes in a car, both ways. So 40 minutes trying to get to the laser tag thing, so there's so many nuances that you learn just by, and especially if you have the title of recruiting coordinator, especially for me, like I was at Xavier and we didn't have football. So now you've got to think about, man, now I've got to play tailgates, now I've got to know I need this many tables. I need this many, cause we don't have, 800 people, we don't have a big staff. So I got to make sure that I'm delegating who's bringing the games, who's bringing the music, who's, I'm getting the food, and I think the biggest thing too, is you can't do it all. And I think that's by having a great staff. We have a great staff here at Toledo, which I'm very fortunate to have. So, but if you're trying to do all of those things, something's gonna fall through the crack. And then as far as knowing what I'm still learning what Coach Cullett wants. What's great is like I said, her brand has already been established. I think what people know about Toledo is that we play extremely hard, and that it's gonna be a fight night in and night out. We're gonna have, our university knows that we're gonna have great kids. We have a high GPA. So those are just small things. Again, I think those are different. If, say, I'm just joining a new staff, say an assistant became a head coach, and now they're bringing in 4 new people. Obviously she knows them or he knows them because they're either their friends, either they're her old counterparts that she knows and she's bringing them together. But I think it's easier when it's already been established, and here at Toledo is already established. So now I'm just trying to basically make sure I don't mess it up. And I think that's what's been fun so far.
Well, I know that knowing you have made I know for a fact you've made a great mark in the community. And I know that, you're just a pillar there, and you guys are going to enjoy some wonderful years. And I thank you so much for giving us that insight into that outstanding program. I mean, that's the gold standard certainly for mid-major programs across the country. I mean, you guys do such an outstanding job there, and to give us that glimpse into what you guys do and how you do it is awesome. Thank you, Coach.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Anybody else with questions for Mark before we move on? All right.
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep, we got you.
This is Lisa Van Wyk. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. I'm not driving. I just pulled over for this. So I'm calling actually from Wisconsin Blaze.
Oh, we lost you. Can you hear us? We lost your audio. Try to connect again. We're not getting anything.
Oh, shoot.
Okay,
I'm
you're
here.
back.
Can you
You're
hear
back.
me now?
You're back.
Okay. I am so sorry. For whatever reason, I just dropped out and I did park. So
It's okay.
So calling from Appleton, Wisconsin, out of Wisconsin Blaze. And I actually created a program called The Path where I help our athletes through the recruiting process. Couple things that is part of it is I ask a lot of questions. So lots of life coaching through the journey. I use field level and sports recruits for the software tools to try and keep track of the emails we send to coaches, communication, just get their faces, their names, their highlight videos and things like that out. Do you guys use those diligently? Like, what is the best way for me as a director and coach to know for sure if we think that it might be a good fit academically, maybe even, Division II, Division I at different levels, if we're not getting emails back, is it because you guys are so busy and you're getting so, infiltrated by hundreds of athletes reaching out to you, or what? Like,
I'll let somebody else answer after me as well. But, I've only been doing this 2 years, technically at this job, in this role. But those kind of things I don't really look at, I'm gonna be honest, and only because you get so many. And I think it would be better, like coming from, Lisa Van, you coming from your personal email and saying, and like actually saying, hey, Coach Stevens, this is, instead of you getting those field recruits, because you get so many of them, you don't know if this kid knows your level. And, and like I said, I was a club coach for a long time. And I think the more personal you know it, the more personal you make it, the more you're going to get a college coach to open it up. Because anytime you see that in your tagline, and I'm sure every coach on here can go and hit the search bar and you've got 100, and then you probably just check all those boxes and you just delete them. Like you might open them up, you see 6'4", or you see, you see some things that you're really looking for, then you might open them up. But I will be honest, there's very rarely times that I open up all personal emails. Then I open up some of those recruit things and fast scouts and stuff like that. Anybody else?
I try to make them personal. I mean, they're all about each individual athlete, and we try to target to make sure it'd be the right fit. It's not athletes guessing what they could play at, but
I'm
course,
even talking about like where it says,
it comes through like an email.
Yeah, I think one of the sentences says she would be good for your university, but like it doesn't even say she would be good for Toledo. It's just so generic and so brand. It's just like,
yeah. Steve and Ebony, you guys feel free to jump in, and if you have anything you want to add to that.
Yeah, I would agree with Lisa. This is Steve Yang. I would agree with Mark. The one thing I will add too is that if you want it to be personal, get to know the coach. All right. I think that's the best way to go at it. If you really want he or she to really recruit your kid, you've got to recruit yourself just as much as they're recruiting you and your players. So I would definitely, get to know them and go from there.
So it's best to reach out to you guys through phone calls and emails and hope to connect to you so that you understand like the kind of athletes that we carry. And because I know a part of it is building my credibility with you guys as coaches and your program to know, like, if I send somebody to you, you'll take those few minutes to at least look.
I
I'm
mean,
I'm more adept to take a phone call for a few minutes than I am to look at an email. Cause like I can walk around, I can drive a car, I can
Okay.
give my kid a bottle and talk on the phone with a Bluetooth rather than sitting down at a computer and open up
Okay.
the 14th email I've seen from the same company.
Okay.
yeah. I mean, if you,
All right. That
Lisa,
helps.
Lisa, I'll add if the school is having like some type of coaches clinic, or if you can go watch a practice. I mean, that's a great way of getting your foot in, just to introduce yourself and then kind of slide in your players. You know,
Okay.
there's many ways for you to get to the coaches, to get to the coaching staff. You just have to find your way.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that.
All right. Now I'm gonna go ahead, and if there's any questions specific to Mark, we'll save like the general questions till the end for all three speakers. But if there's any other questions for specific to Mark and Toledo, feel free to ask now. Otherwise, I'm gonna go ahead and introduce you. Everyone got a glimpse there, but Steve Yang is the Georgetown University Director of Basketball Operations. But this season, he's been elevated to the assistant coach role. He's a native of Tulsa, Oklahoma. He's coached high school, AAU, community college, multiple NCAA divisions. He was an interim head coach at one time at Illinois Springfield. This guy, from running snack bars to running motion offense, he has done it, and he's done it extremely well. It's why he became so successful as a director of basketball operations, starting in that role in 13-14 for Winthrop, then George Mason, and now Georgetown. I will say that the guy is obviously an all-star at his role of director of basketball operations, but if you think that's all he is, then you don't know him, because this guy has a basketball mind that is at the highest level. He can player develop. He gave a clinic on the Washington State Girls Basketball Association on player development, guard player development. Oh, and by the way, the other coaches that gave clinics, Hernando Planels, Kara Lawson, Salvo Copa, Jody Wynn, Corey Close. I mean, this guy can coach, and I'm telling you, he's I can't believe he hasn't been snatched up by a Power 5 team as an assistant coach. This guy is outstanding. He's a master of building organic relationships. Like he sent me a text on my daughter's birthday. He sent me his kids singing happy birthday to my daughter on my daughter's birthday. Like, my best friend didn't even do that. You know what I mean? Like, just that action right there makes me think so differently about this guy, about the relationship he has with me. I mean, it's so powerful. And Steve Yang can do, and the reason he's on here on this recruiting panel is because every time recruiting comes up in our conversations, in our group chats, he's got something to add that just makes me like, wow, like that's awesome. And so, Steve, I'm so lucky to have you on, and I'm glad that you took the time to come on and share, and thank you for coming on, and you take the floor.
Matt, thank you so much. Colleen, thank you. This is an honor to even be on the call with the other two speakers. Kind of like baseball, you know, you've got your lead hitter and then you got your cleanup, like Mark and then Ebony. I'm just in between. I'm just here to try to strike out or something. But you know, I thank you guys so much for being on the call, and these two definitely know what they're talking about, and I'm definitely taking notes. Man, thank you, Matt, for that introduction. I'll send you a check after this. Yeah, I mean, Matthew said I've been all over. Boys basketball, men's basketball, women's basketball, all different levels. Junior college, AAU, NAIA, Division II, Division I. I've been a head coach, been a video coordinator, been a DOBO, been an assistant. So I think my journey has really helped me out in this recruiting process. So whoever's listening, whether you're a NAIA coach or a JUCO, like, I think this really helps out in a sense too, what I'm about to share with you guys. But you know, it's you got to pick your poison in a sense at where you're at, and you got to sell it somehow, some way, right? So I'm gonna kind of touch base on. There's a lot more I can cover, but I'm gonna be quick. And if you guys have any questions, all y'all, if you have any questions and want to talk off the record, feel free to reach out to me. And Matt, we can share our information at the end if you don't mind. I don't mind sharing it too, my contact information for each one of y'all. But first and foremost, for me personally, as a male coaching women's basketball, I don't like to call recruits directly. All right, that's just me. I've got a daughter and 2 boys, but I don't want a grown man calling my girl, right? So that's just me. Like I said, this is all I'm saying is I'm gonna preface it. This is just how I recruit. If she calls me, that's different, but I'm not gonna call her directly. My first initial phone call is gonna be either gonna get consent or get an endorsement from mom, dad, or the high school coach or AAU coach or one of the coaches. It's gonna be an adult in this conversation. And so that's just how I operate, and that's how I'm gonna operate moving forward. But after that first initial call, it's fair game if I get the mother or father or parents' blessings. All right. So that's some of the don'ts. Another don't is don't lie. Don't lie. I mean, the saying goes, if you never lie, if you don't lie, you don't have to remember anything. And I have a hard time remembering things sometimes. I may be talking to Matthew about one thing and then talking to another coach thinking that I already talked about it, but I've got so much going on that it's just hard to remember things. So if you don't lie, you don't have to remember anything. Don't sugarcoat anything. You don't need to sugarcoat it. Like these kids today, they need to know the truth. Heck, we need to know the truth, right? So if you just tell how it is, this is what it is, and not beat around the bush, because kids want to hear it. I mean, you keep beating around the bush, and then eventually you get to it or you don't get to it, and the kids get bored and they get lost in the shuffle. So just don't sugarcoat anything and just tell them straight up. And it's not about you. Don't talk about you. I mean, you may have played and been an All-American, played overseas, played in the league, playing the W, whatever it is. It's not about you. It's not about you at all. It's about them, right? Don't ever offer a scholarship without your head coach's approval. Unless it's Paige Becker's or AZ Fudd, whatever, but don't ever offer a scholarship without your head coach's approval. All right. And don't assume anything. Okay. Don't assume, oh, she's high major. You don't know what they know or what they want. Right. Because at the end of the day, that kid may even want to leave hometown. Oh, she wants to stay. You don't know. So don't assume anything. Go into this recruiting process, getting to know every single kid and find reasons. You might be that reason why they want you. Just recently, I was recruiting a kid. She was one of the top kids in the country, and recruiting her. All of a sudden, this other school came out of nowhere and picked her up. No one had no clue. She blindsided everyone. I found out the reason how she decided on the school, and it made sense. It really made sense at the very end, though. And it came that school just came out of nowhere. Maybe spent like a month with her, and then all of a sudden she chooses that school. But you just can never assume. Don't sit there and think, if you're a Division II coach, don't think, oh, that's D1 kid. You never know. It's not about, oh, and also I'll tap on that too. I'm sorry, is that they may want to come back home too. All right. So when I was coaching on the men's side, I was at an NEI school. We played against another NEI school that had 8 Division I transfers, and one of them played at Duke and started for Coach K. And I bet you that coach was constantly recruiting that kid eventually. You don't know. The kids may want to come home. Family situations may happen. So I would always say, don't assume and just do your due diligence. It's not about the parents. All right. And I say that with reservations, because sometimes if a kid's mom or dad played collegiately or professional, some kids don't like to be in that shadow. All right. So you want to be careful how you always talk about mom or dad or just an uncle or whatever, the shadow, because every kid I found in today's society, or millennials, I guess you want to call it, they want their own shadow. They've got their own journey. There's some other kids that may embrace mom and dad's path that they built for their kids, but you got to vet that. You have to do your research, talk to the kids, and pick up on little things. You've got to pick up on the small, minute details. So be careful. Don't always talk about mom and dad if that's something that she kind of dreads. All right. Those are the don'ts. Obviously, there's a lot more, but I won't go too much into it. I want to touch on the do's. That's more important. I look at the don'ts as the negatives and the do as the positive. So you want to stay more positive on this. Some of the do's would be stay consistent with the calls. I know Mark talked about it recently about having text messages or sent out to each player and all, and from each coach at a certain time of the week. That's great. I mean, do the same thing. And also be consistent with the calls and or text messages. Honest, being honest at everything. I know earlier I talked about do not lie, but you got to be honest and let them know where you're at in the recruiting process. Let them know where your head coach stands. All right. And if you do that, then the kid will trust you more. Know the school, know the community, know your head coach. Mark talked about knowing your head coach earlier, but you have to know your school and your community. If you don't know it, how can you sell it? If you don't know the product, how do you sell the product, right? The product is your head coach. The product is your community, your school, because at the end of the day, they're student athletes. And part of their life, right, is academics. So you have to make sure you know the community, know the school, and what the school has to offer the kid. Discuss it with your recruiting coordinator. If you have a recruiting coordinator, talk to them about it, all right, and let them know where they're at, because if it falls back on their plate, you want them to be involved as much as possible. Ask questions. You have to ask questions. And I don't like to ask questions whenever I talk to recruits, yes or no questions so much. If I do, I like to follow up with how come, or can you elaborate? I like to make sure it's an engaging conversation. Make sure you're asking questions that they'll want to explain themselves or talk about it. I mean, some kids are introverts, or some kids they're young girls, right? And it's hard for them to have a conversation with an adult. So making sure you ask the right questions to get them rolling, and to be a part of this process. One kid I asked, "What's your favorite TV show you're watching right now?" And she told me, and you know what? I started watching it. I did not want to watch it because I felt like it was a little not my style, but I did it just for the recruit. And the next call we got on, we were talking about it, and it was a great conversation. We went back and forth, and it was a good show too, by the way. So making sure that you find reasons to talk and have them converse with you. This is the biggest one. The biggest, if you guys are taking notes, the one thing you want to put a star on, underline, bold, but keep them smiling and laughing. And Mark talked about joke. I love having fun. I love making sure that they're always smiling, laughing, and joking. I mean, that's just something that brings a different side of them out, and they're not so tense. They're not walking on eggshells, and I want them to be relaxed when they're having a conversation with me. I'm human just like them, right? So I want them to know that it's about our friendship relationship, not so because I'm at this school, but because, oh, I like that coach. Because if that coach isn't at that school, I would still go with that coach at another school. Wherever that coach is at, I want to play for that coach more so than anything. So I like to build that relationship, and how you do that for me personally is making sure they're smiling and laughing at all times. Utilizing your resources. Know what your school's all about. Know what your community is about. I talked about that, but utilizing the resources that y'all have to offer and hone on that. Like whether it's having a dietitian, talk about that. Kids want to know that. Some kids want to know about how to stay healthy. A physical therapist, a masseuse. We sell that, right? You got to sell. We bring in a masseuse once a week. Kids love that. Who wouldn't want a massage? I want a massage. A chaplain, if you have a chaplain for the community, or I'm sorry, for the department, talk about that, right? So you're covering the mind, body, and soul already, right there, right? A head of athletic counseling service, someone that's there for them. I'm going to help you. I'm going to have all these resources for you. A director of diversity, equity, inclusion. That's big now these days. So a kid coming in, they're lost in the shuffle. They don't know where to go, who to turn to, who to talk to. Like all these resources, if you guys have it, talk about it. And then cost of attendance, Division I, and all. If you all provide that, I definitely mention that. I know a lot of schools do mention that, but that's a seller too, especially for international students sometimes. And the biggest one that have not been talked that much about, and I'm still slowly trying to work on this a little bit more, is the NILs. If you got a kid, and I saw ESPN just posted something else up on it the other day or so. But if you had a kid coming in out of high school that has a huge social media following, and your marketing department can take it and run with it, take what they're doing and run with it and help them out, why not? And you're helping them out. You're trying to help endorse them and help them to brand themselves, right? So I would definitely have conversation with the recruit, even with the coaches, parents involved, and let them know, hey, this is where we see your daughter. This is where we can help her out to monetize her brand, and also have an education, obviously, and play the game of basketball. So, and lastly, well, two things. I'm sorry. The president. You have to, once you get them, you have to keep recruiting them. As we know, Mark alluded to this, is that transfer portal, right? You have to keep recruiting these kids every year, every year, every day, regardless. If you do it right the first time, you don't have to do it a second time, right? And so I think that's the biggest keys, constantly recruiting your players like they're a new student athlete. And then that's the present, and then recruit their future. Um, having recruiting them throughout their process, and then recruiting them after they graduate, still stay in contact with them, because those alums could be your future, meaning they could be talking like on the sidebar or so, meeting each other at a alumni event or whatnot, or whatever happens. Like those alums are endorsing you and talking about you as a coach, as a staff. So you got to constantly recruit these alums or these players in their future, because who knows? I used one of my former players as a reference one time, and I thought it helped. But you just never know what can come out of it. But you know that something great will come out of it as long as you invest in them. So that's some of the do's. I mean, there's a lot more. I won't take up too much of y'all's time already, but I think if you have a good solid base of the do's and the don'ts, this can kind of help y'all in the recruiting process, making sure that y'all are out there building the relationship, making sure it's organic. And I will say this, Matt, before I turn it over, is that I tell every kid I can't recruit everybody. I tell every recruit, and that's a conversation I have with everyone, is that I can't recruit you all. But if for whatever reason you decide to want to go to a different school, you have questions, because a lot of kids have questions that they don't know who to turn to. Like I tell them, hey, you can always ask me. Like, just because you're not playing for me at this institution doesn't mean you can't still call me to talk and have questions, right? Because you never know. Like I said, you never know what's going to happen 2 years from now, a year from now, 4 years from now, right? So I believe in that. I believe in recruiting kids, not for 4 years. I recruit players forever. And my former players will tell you that. I still talk to a lot of my former players that are on the men's side. Just recently, I was at Xavier, and one of my former men's player came and watched my game at Xavier. And so, I mean, little things like that really matters, and it speaks volume about who you are as a person, as a coach. I believe that if you keep doing that and building a relationship with them, that's why we're in the game. That's why you coach in the first place, right? To have relationships forever. So that's just me. But I'll leave it at that. Matt, I know there's a lot more I can talk about, but if you guys have any further questions or any questions, feel free to reach out to me, and I'll be more happy to talk more about the logistics and more of the other stuff that kind of Mark talked about too.
Well, Steve, thank you so much. And I just know that your recruiting is at the highest level because of how you build relationships. And you are such a genuine guy. And like I mentioned before about the text on my daughter's birthday, like I can see you doing those types of things in recruiting and just having just amazing success. So I know that wherever you go and whatever you do in your career, the recruiting is going to be at a high level, no matter where you go. So thank you for coming on and telling us about your do's and don'ts and dropping some of your knowledge and the types of things that you do there at Georgetown. I appreciate that. And if there's any questions at this time, just directly for Steve, we'll hold off on the general questions till the end. We'll go ahead and move on. Colleen, if you have anything you want to add right now.
Yes, I do. I just want to preface Ebony's presentation, and I noticed that two people have joined our Zoom call that I'd like to just give a shout out to. One of them is Lynette Woodard. Wood, I see you on there. You missed my earlier shout out, but Lynette Woodard, one of the very first Kodak 4-time All-Americans, was a star at the University of Kansas, like I said, for Coach Marion Washington. And Lynette, I told the story about how when I was at Nebraska, we had to figure out how to stop you. We didn't. We should have done the boxing one, put the box around you. And the second guest, and I did some recruiting because I introduced this individual to Ebony. Deborah Powell played for me at the University of Nebraska, and our relationship now spans over 30 years. I hate to say that many years, but she was a special recruit from East St. Louis High School in East St. Louis, Illinois. I noticed her when I went to recruit Jackie Joyner. So she and Jackie played on the high school team. They went undefeated, won the Illinois State Championship. She went on, became the mayor of East St. Louis, and only Deborah could become the mayor. I know she's quite the politician, shaking hands. And so Deborah and Lynette, we appreciate you taking time to get on our Zoom and listen to these coaches. Thank you very much.
Welcome, welcome. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you, Colleen, for pointing that out. Appreciate that. That's amazing. Well, I'd like to go ahead and introduce our next speaker now. I've had the pleasure of knowing Ebony for, I believe, 3 years now. A little bit about her background. She was a star playing high school, I believe in Kansas, won several awards, and was featured in a documentary called City Ball.
Mhm.
So there are a couple of Hollywood stars on here with Colleen in her Hollywood background. She played collegiately at Kansas, Cowley County Community College, and then Oral Roberts. She spent 3 years working for the College Coaches Network, showcasing student athletes and assisting college coaches in their search for talented players. So she has that background and that angle, which is awesome. It was very interesting as a recruiter. She coached at Utah State as director of basketball operations for 3 years for her former coach, Jerry Finkbeiner, and then was a UC Irvine assistant for 1 season. And the past 4 years has been on Coach Mitty's staff at Kansas State, and the last 2 years as an assistant coach. Ebony's a woman of faith, is a licensed minister. She's a wonderful person, has an infectious personality, and constantly lifts up those around her. And you can tell how much I love Ebony, just the smile that comes across my face every time I talk about her or talk to her. Her superpower is her ability to love and care for and connect with people, and especially players. So I'm going to toss it over right now to Ebony Haliburton from Kansas State.
Hey y'all, thanks for having me, Matt and Colleen, Coach Matsuhara. It's just awesome to get on talking about recruiting. I'm excited because we have Jackie Styles and Lynette Woodard on the this call, and Jackie has the most points in NCAA history, if I'm correct, men or woman. And Lynette Woodard, she has the most points before the NCAA was established. And so I wonder, out of everyone on the call, who will win in the game of pig? I'm not quite sure, but and so I thank everyone for being here. I have a great family and my brother and just a lot of people. So we're going to dive right into a quick recruiting presentation about recruiting. And I'm with Kansas State Coach Jeff Mitty. And I'm going to need some participation. So I have a question for anyone that has been recruited, that have been disappointed. Can you tell me why you were disappointed in going to a coaching staff? What happened? In like a quick, I want to get some activity in a quick. If you were recruited by a coaching staff and it was a total disappointment, you don't have to say the school, especially if it's K-State. But if it's Toledo or if it's Georgetown, feel free, but not K-State. So if anyone can go, if you ever been recruited and you went to a place and it was totally different for what you thought.
And feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and speak if there's anybody that has a story.
All right. Going once.
Ebony just got in here.
Hey, coach.
Hey, Ebony.
That's my college coach at Oral Roberts. So thanks for getting on, Coach Finkbeiner. He coached me at Oral Roberts, and my record against him in pig is ridiculous. I used to beat him all the time. So we're not even going to talk about that. But Coach, thanks for getting
That's
on.
good.
Okay, so we'll dive right into the PowerPoint. I asked that question because of recruiting. If done the wrong way or with the wrong intention, you can damage a lot of student athletes' dreams and future and passion. So I first want to say, if you're in this game of recruiting and as a coach and a mentor, you really have to take it serious. And it's really a serving position of really serving another person and just bringing out the best. But if it's nowadays, you can make a lot of money at Power 5 schools in basketball. And a lot of people get into recruiting, college coaching for the wrong reasons. And it's a dangerous thing to have a student athlete come to your school, but you're not passionate about the right things. And so let's, and I'm going to share the screen. We're going to get right into this, let me see, what is this PowerPoint? Okay, I think it's right here. Yeah. And let me know, I'm sure you guys can see it, right?
Yep.
Yep.
Just
Okay, I'm
Go
gonna
ahead.
try to do
Yep.
it on the big screen, just the whole show. So let's see what happens. Can you guys see the whole thing?
we see your whole screen, like we see the
Okay.
setup menu. Yeah.
Okay, growth mindset. Yeah, you guys see that?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay. So thanks, Matthew, again. He's at UCLA. He actually did this the scout when UCLA beat Arizona, a really close game here in the Pac-12 tournament to play against Stanford. And Mac did a lot of the analytics. He's a genius with analytics. And so he really wants to get into coaching. And it's just amazing how the analytic of the game has changed. And so Matt was right with Coach Close and her staff in doing those things. So he's awesome, but we'll get it. We're just going to go through. I'll be real quick. I know, but introduction. We'll go through the power of the follow through, do your job, measurements of recruiting in this difficult time, and tips for recruiting. Okay, we'll get right in it. Yep, I used to go at a high school in Kansas City, Central High School. I was College Coaches Network. I connected student athletes with college coaches. I worked with the company that did that. And so I educated student athletes on the recruiting process. I worked for a company in Chicago called Luxury Limousines. And I drove famous people around, Pink Floyd, Patti LaBelle, Bobby Brown, who else? Madonna, Bruce Springsteen. I love the job because I just love to connect with people. And so I was director of ops at Utah State for my college coach, Jerry Finkbeiner. He gave me the opportunity to get back into athletics with him at Utah State. And it was a blessing because Coach Finkbeiner, it's just a real easy boss. He loved and he was passionate about the game. So it was a lot of fun. Then from Utah State, I went to UC Irvine. From Irvine, I was director of student athlete development at Kansas State. And then this is my second year as assistant coach. I spent 2 years as the director of student athlete development. And the reason why I share all this information is because your story is purposeful. Your story is actually going to come together to help you become a better recruiter. You're going to connect with people. And so whether it's the janitor at Utah State or the athletic director at Utah State, you have to serve people and have that passion to really help and serve people. And that's what it's about with the recruiting, relationships throughout your whole life. I know at some, I got coaches texting me, but at sometimes when you go to the Final Four, I see a lot of different people in conversations with people. And so let's just say I'm in a conversation with someone from, I'm gonna make up a school, Uptown State. And then Coach Gino from UConn walks in, but I'm talking to this Uptown State coach, eye contact. I see Coach Gino from UConn walks in. All of a sudden that Uptown State coach with most people become not important. Move out the way. I need to get to Gino. And that's a bad way of relationships, because everybody has a purpose in your life. And sometimes that person at a Uptown State will be a better asset than even Coach Gino from UConn. So let's get in it. The power of the follow through.
Ebony,
Now-
real quick, did you want to change slide? You're still on the first slide there.
Oh,
You
yeah.
You could go slideshow start, or you could just click on the slide.
Hold on, let me see. Next. Do you guys see that?
We're still on the same growth mindset Zoom.
Okay, hold
just
on.
click on the slide on the left, and it'll come up if you don't want to start
Yeah,
the show.
it's I might have to do it like this.
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, so we're gonna go right here. Can you see that power of the follow through? Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Power of the follow through. I preached a sermon called "The Power of the Follow Through" in high school, and this won't take long. In high school, I had a coach named Dave Hayden. He invested a lot, and so he'll come to all my games, and in the stands he would always do like this, and he would just it would be a total follow through, but it would be like this, and it'd be like always, and I look at him, and he'll just always be like, just follow through, Ebony, follow through. And I'm like, okay, Dave, but my follow through, the rotation of my ball was kind of weird. It would just rotate all kind of, so I couldn't become a great shooter because I had no follow through. And Dave would always stand up and he would just be like, follow through. And so I'm like, man. And so when I finished playing basketball, sometimes God will use different areas in your life to really teach you life lessons. And in recruiting, the follow through is so important. And I just wanted to show a quick YouTube. Let me know if you can see it. Can you guys see this?
It's not coming up.
Oh, it's not?
Screens across.
Okay.
Alone.
Hold on, let me try it. I might have to, okay, here we go. I might have to do it like this and just, hold on one second. Yeah, well, anyway, I'll go back to the power form. It was actually Michael Jordan's, what they call the last shot. And he came up against Brian Russell and he crossed him over and he shot it and he left his follow through up. And they called it his last shot. Right before that play, he stripped Malone, came down and shot the last shot. But his follow through was so important. And in recruiting, it's so important that we follow through in every relationship, follow through, callbacks, just follow through. As a pastor, you'll be amazed how many people will come back to church just because I call them, hey, I saw you on Sunday at church. Hey, we are so happy that we saw you. They'll come back just because somebody cares and someone reached out. So it's so important. See the relationship all the way through. So if you get the recruit, if you get the student athlete, even when they graduate and you think that they can't help you anymore, you have to make sure you're just finishing it, follow through. Even when they're not playing for you anymore, because if you will follow through with them, they'll follow through for you. It's amazing. People don't want to know how much you know. They want to know how much you care. All right. So see the relationship through. In relationships, sometimes relationships are mutual. Sometimes you're the one pouring into relationship, and sometimes you're the one receiving in the relationship. No matter what the relationship is, follow through, really value relationships, because as you grow older, you will see you have about a handful of people that really have your back. So when you have those people, you got to take care of those people. And then when you have relationships that some are God sent and some are God used. All right, I'll go to the next one. Do your job so you won't lose your job. In recruiting, you have to forgive yourself for losing a player, but not for bringing in a bad one. If you take a bunch of exceptions, you become a team of exceptions. If you lose a player, she may beat you once or twice a year. But if you bring a bad player, she will beat you every single day. So if you're really lazy in this recruiting process and you just get a kid without doing your research, and we'll go to the next slide and I'll tell you about how to do your research. You will really, if you get a kid and you didn't do your research and you didn't build a relationship, but it was just because it made you look good, every day you'll have to look at that kid for a whole season, and it could be a bad mistake. Okay, so recruit. I kind of came up with some different names in recruiting. So relationship, the R. Who will decide who's connected? What type of people are they? Some of the same things the other coaches were telling you. Evaluation. Now I'm going to switch this around. As a college coach, I know I was in a gym and I saw a head coach. She was falling asleep at all the games. She was on her phone. She was recruiting. When you are out evaluating recruits and looking for talent, put your best self forward. A parent really doesn't want to see a coach looking at their phone the whole time. Parents love for you to be invested, to know about the state games, to know about different things. So be connected to that student athlete. Listen to the recruit's conversation and evaluation. If they say, man, I always quit on everything, that's a red flag. You don't want to recruit a kid that's always quitting. Commitment is important. You may ask that student athlete, what is your why? Some might say, I play because my dad makes me play. Then you may not have a kid that's very passionate. The C, capability. You have to make sure they have the skill when you're recruiting them. Resilience, toughness. My head coach, Coach Jeff Mitty, he says, Ebony, I need toughness and I need passion. You have to get kids that won't give up, that's tough. Use, okay? You have to recruit kids that are purposeful for your institution. And so that's very, can your head coach use that student athlete? Integrity. And if a kid has integrity, most of the time that kid will want to be a kid that has unity in a team. So the integrity of a kid is important, and that tenacious is tenacious is passion. They're firm believers of the program. They have passion. Okay, all right. And I have only a couple of slides. I didn't want to keep you guys, but recruiting in these difficult times, we right now we do a lot of Zoom different things with recruits. So we have a Zoom presentation through Kansas State women's basketball. If you guys want to see it, I could show you, but I'll basically it shows like pretty much if they're on an official visit. And you know what? I'll bring it up because this is one thing I really like to show parents, but I'm not. But it show we have a whole recruiting presentation of everything. So let me see if it'll work. So I'm guessing you guys can't see this either, right?
Correct.
Correct.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to just go back and keep moving. But basically, we have a facilities tour. You have meeting the coaches. You have videos of the girls talking to recruits. It's just a recruiting. So it's a hard time to recruit. We haven't been able to get on the road. So it's really to social media. I've been watching so many games on the high school network and trying to relate in that way. If you're recruiting in this time, this is great time to get steals on recruits because coaches have become lazy. Okay. The next slide is most important tips for recruiters. Coach Eatman, Coach DeCosta, Coach Woodard, Coach Matsuhara, different people who have recruited me. Coach Eatman says, be honest with the recruit. As Coach Yang said, Coach Matsuhara says, be honest with the recruits. Now, Coach Matsuhara, she was actually in love and basketball, as we said earlier. I met her at the Final Four. I said, hey, and I was bothering. I said, I know you. You're that lady from Love and Basketball. And so my personality sometimes scared people off, but she looked at me like, get away from me. And then we connected, but Coach Matsuhara actually recruited Jackie Joyner-Kersee and Deborah Powell. Coach Matsuhara went to East St. Louis and got and recruited Jackie Joyner-Kersee and Deborah Powell, two big recruits. And Jackie Joyner-Kersee played basketball and was a amazing track, one of the greatest of all times. And Coach Matsuhara had her advice to everyone was be honest with the recruit. And then Coach DeCosta, I text her for what she would want me to tell you guys. She said, don't believe the family when they tell you what they are looking for. It never is. As a recruiter, you will have to search for what that really is. And I've learned that's true. A lot of kids say, yeah, I want to go to a big city and I want this. And the family says the same thing. Then the kid ends up going to a small town. Mm-hmm. And so never stop recruiting a recruit because of what a family member told you. Always recruit, and you find out through relationship what that recruit really wants. I think, and then that's about it. What all of I wanted to cover. The power of the follow through was really my biggest thing that I wanted to cover, because the follow through game has to be on point. It has to be not for selfish gain, but it's for it's just you being a genuine person, wanting to see the best. I have a recruit on right now that transferred to us from the University of Houston, and she graduated, Angela Harris. We needed a point guard. We still do need a point guard, by the way, so keep your ears open for me. But Angela Harris is on the call, and she transferred from Houston, and she had a couple of big time programs to choose from. And I remember getting on the phone, and she had experienced some things at Houston. So I remember just taking my phone, because I talked to mom, Miss Vanessa, dad, Mr. Garland, and Angela, and they had experienced so much at Houston. Well, I would just put my phone on speaker, and dad be like, this happened. I'd be like, man, for real? And that's the only thing I could say, because they just needed to unload on me. I was like, man. And I wanted, when Angela came to K-State, to be able to serve her. And Angela had good times at Houston, but she needed a change, and she had graduated. And Angela came to K-State. Her dad, I've developed a relationship with her dad and her mom, and we went to their house. And Angela didn't know this, but I don't really like dogs like on top of me and different things like that. But I wanted Angela so bad as a recruit. So Angela was like, Coach, you see my dog? His name is Jack. So I'm about to eat, and the dog just jumps on me. And I'm like, dang, I gotta act like I like this kind of stuff. So I like it. I said, oh man, he's so cute. And so Jack and Angela could tell you, Jack's a big old dog. I'm like, so I'm about to eat. Jack's on top of me. I'm looking at Angela, and I'm looking at Coach Mitty, and I'm thinking, Coach, I'm taking one for the team. And but I ended up loving Jack. I just not around, because her dad is an amazing cook, and then he was making ribs and everything. And I was like, man, not around my ribs. But I'm gonna have a relationship forever with Angela. and she wants to be a coach. I asked her to get on, but that's the specialty of relationship and recruiting, taking care of people. I'm able to see Coach Motts and Coach Deborah and how they connect and they relate and build long time relationships. So that's about it.
Those are such great words, and I completely understand where you're coming from with Coach Motts walking around with her. She'll see somebody, and I'll say, "How do you know them?" "Oh, I recruited her," and still friends, 25, 30 years later. And you're absolutely right, Ebony. You build relationships like Coach Motts does, like Colleen does, and you've been so thoughtful in my relationship with you. You're doing a great job, and you are a fabulous recruiter, and you love on those players, and you always have their best interests. And every time I talk with you, you have my ultimate respect, and I thank you so much for coming on and speaking to everybody. Now, if there's questions from the group for Ebony or for any of the other coaches, let's open it up for some Q&A.
I got one. My question is, so with you guys being bigger schools, how do you guys have a large list of how many kids you guys are looking at or talking with from each year? How does that dwindle down? And how do you organize that? Does that make sense?
Well, we have we made like a ring team, a purple team. We have a different, and I actually have a PowerPoint for that too. But we have a different. I could send it to you. I did it football, so Coach wouldn't get mad for me giving all our stuff. So I did football with the football numbers and different things like that. But so we have a ring team, a purple team, and so who's a priority? If we don't get this group, the next group, and then the next group, and the next group, and so that's how we yeah. And unfortunately, sometimes if you're going after the bigs, the big names and stuff, that second group, it needs to be solid. It can't be a big fall off.
Yeah, that's kind of the same thing we do. We have a gold team, a navy team, and then a white team, and then we have a keep warm team. Because like you said, especially when you're recruiting post players, especially if you're recruiting those kids who probably are looking for Power Fives. And like Steve said, you never know if somebody wants to stay at home or somebody wants to do this, and then you kind of organize it too, as especially with my head coach being the president of the WBCA. You can't give her 20 kids to call a week, so you got to kind of prioritize her call list. So what we try to do is I try to give her kind of our top 10 to 15. And that's what's great. You got to know your head coach too. If your head coach is somebody who loves to talk, who loves to dive into the recruiting process, like is willing to do it every day. But then, I haven't been many places, but I'm sure there's some coaches who only like to make 3 calls a day or 4 calls a day, or, there's somebody who would just sit on the phone. So you got to kind of know that too. But, and then, your associate head coach or whoever your next title is, or then you want to, if you're recruiting a post player, she might want to talk to, your post coach more than maybe she talks to the guard coach, because that's going to be who she's with the most. But then, some schools actually have, well, this is your kid, you recruit that kid, you and the head coach. And then our philosophy is everybody recruits all the players, so that way they have a relationship with everybody.
Yeah, it's the same way. Devontae is just having tiers, and that's the cute little name that Mark and Ebony they have. I like them. Just having tiers and knowing what you're really going after, how much you're going to invest in each kid, and then having your backups, I guess, if you want to say, just in case it doesn't fall through. So.
But then also, you don't want to get too far down in your tier. You get too far down in your tiers, and you might want to think about pushing that scholarship to another class or recruiting a different type of kid, because you don't want to start going to your C list and D list type kids. Then you might want to think about maybe bringing in an extra of somebody else, make it a big 3 and player at the 4 or something like that. You don't want to go too far down your list.
I have a quick question. My name is Mariah. First, I want to say thank you guys for getting on this. I've definitely learned a lot from all 3 of you guys, so I definitely appreciate that. I'm a young coach trying to get back into the college game, but I don't have the recruiting experience that a lot of head coaches are looking for. So I wanted to just ask you guys, what would be some advice that you guys would give someone like myself? And I guess you guys can go in the order that you presented.
I mean, I think I can answer that. I'm sure they can too, but I had no experience. I played arena football for 9 years. You know, I started out, you know, in a totally different sport. I played college basketball as well. But I don't think you got to look at it as what you don't have, but you got to look at it as what you do bring. You know, and Steve talked about your journey, and Ebony talked about your journey. Everybody's journey is unique. You know, I was able to, you know, bring a football mindset and defense and different things like that. And then, you know, being in the women's game of basketball, even though it was club, it wasn't college. But you just got to show the coach what you do bring. And then every coaching is looking for something different. You know, I talked about that too, as far as making a staff. Every coach doesn't want their staff to be the same. So you just got to look at as what you can bring to that coach. And then you've got to go out and seek what might be a fit for you. And even I'm going to put in a plug for us. We know we need a GA. So if any of you guys know somebody who wants a GA, hopefully they're really good in graphics and design and different things like that. But again, even small things like that, especially if there's some, you know, now that Dobos and different things can get on the floor and coach, and, you know, there's just so many different opportunities that different universities are going to have. You just got to seek those things out.
Oh, Mark, that's a good one. I mean, I always, those who know me, I always say there's more than one way to get in our house. It's not the front door, the back door, the garage, the basement, the chimney. There's different ways to get in a program. Mariah, with your experience, definitely, I believe that you could definitely just put yourself out there that way. But I'll give you the same advice that a mentor of mine gave me whenever I was on the men's side and I transitioned over to the women's side. I was talking to Van Chancellor, and he told me that, hey, Steve, I asked him, hey, how can I recruit? How can I recruit on the women's side? I just started, and I've been on the men's side for 6, 7, 8 years or so. And the one thing Van told me was, it's your personality. All right. You can recruit anyone if you bring your personality. And if you do that, I promise you, you could recruit with the best of them. Right. So I always tell people I come batteries included. What you get is me and all of me. And that's the same thing for you. This coach may want this type of coach for this recruiting, or this type of coach for recruiting, but your personality, your character, who you are, I think that's going to win kids over.
Hey, didn't you play in Baylor?
Yes, I did.
Okay, you played for Kim Oki?
I did. I played for her from 2009 to 2013.
Okay. Where are you from?
I'm from Atlanta.
What high school?
Southwest Atlanta Christian Academy, where Dwight Howard played.
Okay, so you played for Kim Oki, and you played where Dwight Howard played. Yes. And where do you work now?
I work for the Memphis Grizzlies.
And you work for the Memphis Grizzlies.
Mm-hmm.
I got about 15 friends on the phone. We need tickets against the Lakers in Memphis. And we will all work at getting you a job in women's basketball again. I think your resume and everything speaks for itself. And I think that with the networking, with all the people on the call, and the big thing is, I look at your resume, you're loyal. And that's, Coach Mott said, you have to find people that work for you, that's loyal. And so I think that with all of us, you know, that are connected to women's basketball, we can network together, and you have so much to bring to this game. And so I think that through Matthew, through everyone on the call, Coach Opad, there's so many college coaches on, we can figure out how to get you back into the women's game. But first, after you give us some Memphis Grizzly tickets.
I'll see what I can do. I can't make any promises, but I'll see what I can do.
Okay.
Thank you, coaches.
Yeah, I'll just add, you know, 90% of it, Mariah, is just putting it out there that that's what you're looking for, you know, and, you know, you did a good job. Now that I guarantee you there's going to be 15 conversations that come out of this that your name is going to come up on. So,
hey, I'm hoping.
Yeah,
I'm recognizing a lot of names
yeah.
on here. So
Yeah, let me say this. I first met Mariah when I spoke at the So You Want to Be a Coach program at the WBCA convention. We didn't know each other, but she was in charge of, whatever. And we started talking. And whenever I would ask her, hey, will you save me a place? Because I want to come hear Tara speak. She goes, you got it. I'd show up. She had me a seat. And so we sort of kept in touch. But then I found out that she won a national championship at Baylor with Coach Mulkey. And I thought, wow, you really got some great background. And now with the Grizzlies, and I've seen some of your work. And so I know that you're just, somebody's going to uncover you. So just keep up with the grind.
thank you. I appreciate that.
Any other questions for the panelists, the recruiting, anyone else?
Hello, everyone. For the young recruits, people who are going to be recruiting, the question I want to pose to everyone is, you bring an athlete in, you see an athlete through, but in between that time, what kinds of supports do you actually have on your campus in order to make them stay, to get that staying power, that you can avoid losing an Angela? And then I have a follow-up from there. For example, University of Nebraska gave us a support family that would come to root for us at the games and things of that nature. So what is it that you do between that time when they come and when they leave that makes your program so successful in having people who have been through your program go out and speak about your program?
I think I think you hit it on. I think you've just got to have different channels of support. One thing that we do is we have a mentorship program. So what happens is every kid gets a professional mentor in their field of studies. So say you want to be a vet. So we found a vet in town that you go out to eat with once a month, you meet with once a month, you job shadow with once a month. So now when you graduate, you have somebody that's actually in your profession that can speak about you, not only as a person, but it's different. Like most of us, when we graduate, the only job reference we had is a coach. But now by doing this, you actually have somebody that's in your field of study that can speak about your actual knowledge of the actual job. So, so that's one person. And then, we're lucky here at Toledo. We average about 4,000 people a game. So we're in the top, 25, top 30 in attendance. So, especially for our international students, we have, about a group of 10 to 15 cute little old ladies that makes flags with everybody's country on it, so, and I think that's, Steve talked about, and just knowing your community, and, whether it's a Black young lady and, talk about your diversity and inclusion, groups and sororities or different things like that, whatever it is that, or that you find out along the recruiting process, which kid is going to need something extra, whether it's outside, whether it's a friend, whether if they're used to, this type of home cooked meal, or now you got to go out before they get there and you got to have a list of, they like barbecue or they like Mexican. So you got to have a list of, just small things that's going to make them feel at home. And then you just want to keep building on that, throughout their 4 years.
And how much time do you all actually spend being honest about campus when the person comes on campus? For example, and I'm just going to be very candid with you all, there was so much racism at the University of Nebraska. We weren't even 1% as athletes. And if I hadn't come with 2 other athletes from East St. Louis and then had a coach who was also a minority, it probably would have been even more difficult, but we would have those courageous conversations. But I would just venture to say that in your being honest with the person, with your knowledge of the reality of the food shortages or that a person may be coming in with as you've recruited them, and the racism that they may encounter, and just in addition to that person that's over cultural and diversity, what are you all doing to make sure to have those conversations? Because I'll tell you this, many of your athletes may not say anything to you, but they go through that. So somebody has to be there to have that courageous conversation to support the food insecurities, to support the racism that they may not talk to you about, but they feel. But just who do you all have that's really conscious of those kinds of things on your campuses?
Hey, Deborah, this is Steve. I don't know if you're on whenever I spoke. Thank you for asking that question. But, if the university itself has that resource. And I won't speak too much about my university because we have all that. That's something that we do talk about to recruits and let them know that, hey, this is a safe place for you because this is the reason why. Boom, 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 boom. Right. So I'll say this to recruits, and I say it all the time, and the parents, is that you got to recruit us just as much as we're recruiting you. We could be telling you all this, be selling you a dream, but for you to buy a dream, is this the money you want to invest in, right? And I'm not talking literally money, but you got to want to invest in us just as much as we're investing in you. So the resources, absolutely. I mean, I think with 2021 and what's happened before, unfortunately, all this has really turned things up across the board. Me being in this field, and I think everybody on this call that's involved in college sports, a lot of campuses have gone to that initiative, and like we just hired a director of DEI, just to really, and I just got off a call with her today about what we're going to do as a campus to move forward. And so to have that conversation with these recruits, it's imperative to do that. And so you talked about the institution you just mentioned, but I highly encourage that just because these colleges are recruiting you, you got to do your research and say, all right, do I want to go there because of this happened and whatnot, and really ask those tough questions to the coaches, to every single one, even ask it to the ADs or the SWA, whatever it is. But I would highly encourage you to put forth the effort, like what is it that you provide? And I think a lot of schools are providing that.
Yeah. And let me just say, providing it is one thing, but delving into it and supporting is totally different. Ebony, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think you're right. Oh, go Steve.
Well, I just want to say, Deborah, and I didn't want to jump into that, but you're absolutely right. We provided, but I mean, there's more. That conversation, that topic right there, we can go on and on and on. I'm not going to dive into it. We can talk off record, but there's a reason why we have it, and a lot of schools have it for a reason. But definitely,
I'll touch on that, and if I could be as candid as possible, for me, being a Black woman in Manhattan, Kansas, and then recruiting, because sometimes people say, oh, hey, I got the perfect kid for you. And then I see, and then they send me a white girl and say, oh yeah, those are type of kids, that's a good fit. So to go against those stereotypes, and then when we get our Black student athletes, I take it personal on teaching them. I had one kid, she loved not to wear shoes in the hotel, and she loved to wear her bandana on her head when she wakes up, when she came to breakfast. And I said, hey, come here. No, you are a woman of excellence. You are, and just speaking life. And I think that as a Black woman, it's part of my responsibility to, because you will deal with racism in different places, but to the like Dr. King said, to the Jew, I became a Jew. To the white student athlete, I'm going to try to meet them where they are. And there's, for me, we have things on our campus that they spend, they overpay people just to say we crossed we just hired a director of diversity inclusion and we paying them $150,000 a year. If they're paying that much, I will learn diversity inclusion just to get that job, not because I'm passionate about it, but schools are doing this just to mark, and they're paying a lot just to mark boxes off, where when you have a Black woman or a minority on your staff that has experience, that's the best hands-on that you can give. And you have to be bold and speak up for righteousness for all your student athletes. But it's a lot of craziness going on as far as hiring the people just to check off a box.
And I know this is probably definitely sort of different, but even as not only a Black man, but even as a man coaching women's basketball, I feel that it's upon me to show a young woman how a man's supposed to act. Like I open the door for every woman I ever see. I pull out chairs. I do, you know, and those are just small things because, you know, I want my players to see me being a dad. I want I want them to see me being a husband or me. I mean, I say, yes, ma'am, there are kids, you know, I say, yes, ma'am. I mean, and those are just, you know, the military background in me, but it's still, I think those are just kind of the things that sometimes that parents, and that's what I talk about. You got to find that staff. You've got to know who you want around your kids. Because again, if you're talking to a recruit and all they want to know is about basketball, then, and that's when I think Ebony talked about, you know, sometimes they're just going to ask you what they want to know, but that might not be really what they want to know. So sometimes you've got to tell them about your staff. You've got to tell them that you have a DIE, or you got to tell them that you have this, and this, you know, counseling or whatever it is those programs are. And I think that's, you know, you got to learn that, I guess, as you go throughout the recruiting process. You don't learn those until like maybe conversation 10, you know, 15.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I'm a principal and I've been in the states of Mississippi, in Kansas, and in Missouri. And I've seen so many of our athletes come back. And when you talk with them, it's because they didn't have that support, the real support. And that's why I wanted to just share, because oftentimes we get our athletes and we use them, and I'm just not trying to be funny, I'm just being real. We use them for those 4 years in which we can have them to further our program. But what are you doing to further their lives and give them sustainability and stability? And I just want to just bring that up. Thank you.
Deborah, let me add to real quick is that you're absolutely right. And I just said this to a recruit the other day. I said, you have to use them just as much as they're using you. It's a transaction in a sense where they're using you for 4 years. You have to use them for 40 years. And that's our motto, is 4 for 40. So 4 years here, 40 years, the rest of your life, your career, right? With this degree, and you go from there. So every kid and parents, you have to understand it is a transaction in a sense. And we're trying to capitalize on your 4 years here. And so, but you have to be selfish in a sense of what can the university give me as an individual? And that's where the conversation needs to be had. And now that schools have a DEI or psychiatrists and all that, what are we doing to utilize all these resources now that's here to make you a better whole, better person? And I'll be honest with you, sometimes the schedule is the kids, you look at a kid's schedule, a student athlete schedule at the collegiate level, they're doing weights, class, practice, and then individual workouts, whatever. I mean, it's all over. It's jam-packed, right? And so it's kind of hard for them. So that's where the budgeting comes in. That's where we kind of have to help them become a maturing adult. And so that, like I said, that conversation that we can have on another time, but definitely I think that's very important. And as coaches, for me, I'll speak for myself, that's why we believe in 4 for 40. And I believe in that recruiting for forever and making you the best person you could be after college.
Hey, Deborah, I guess it's easy for everyone to see that not only was she a politician, but she went back to school, got her doctorate. But when Deborah came to play for me at Nebraska from East St. Louis, I also recruited 2 of her high school teammates. And they were actually, I believe it was the first African-American players we had in the program. Isn't that correct, Deborah? So I knew that it was tough because the white players had never been around Black teammates. So they were a little leery too. In fact, I remember that you all got into a little bit of not a fist fight, but I mean, I could tell this group this. One of the white players was getting on Deborah and said, well, who do you think you are, dark and lovely? You know, like the hair product. And Deborah was the leader of the minority players. She knew how to talk and conduct herself. I thought Deborah was going to beat up this player. And I mean, I had to like keep an eye on her because Deborah was explosive. She was athletic, and this player would not have had a chance. And I think we sat down, didn't we, Deborah, and talked about things, and they got to where they learned how to accept differences and still dwell on the similarities about working together. So, you know,
Dark and lovely.
Yeah, going through that experience, because remember, I was a minority too. I mean, I don't think I saw more than one Asian in the town of Lincoln. When I used to go to Target, I felt like everyone was watching to see what I bought. So I knew what they were going through, but we were fortunate that we did have a black male on campus, Vaughn Robertson. You remember him, Deborah? And I connected them to Vaughn, and he became like their father away from home. He loved them, kept track of them. In fact, I think he still stayed in touch with several of you after you graduated.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you, Coach. And the support is just important. I just wanted to share that.
Thank you, Deborah. Thank you for joining the call, Dr. Powell.
Thank you, Deborah, for bringing that up. And those courageous conversations, like you put, are so important to be had. And it's important that the coaches on that staff can have those, and the players can be heard. And I feel lucky at UCLA that that they're having those courageous conversations, and and I think it's a subject that's very, very important. Any other questions for the panelists? Any other discussion topics from anyone? I'll say I appreciate so much these three all-stars coming on. I mean, yeah, this was a real treat. I learned from every single one of them, and I'm glad it is recorded. It is going to be up on the YouTube, and I'm going to watch it again. I know that, and I will have the link sent out, and everyone can share that with their friends. But this was fabulous. It was long overdue, and I thank Mark Stevens, Steve Yang, and Ebony Haliburton for coming on and doing such a just fabulous job, and for all the attending coaches and people that came on as well. This was I think our largest attended Zoom, and for good reason. We have three outstanding coaches. So thank you so much, everyone.